Ikväll så kommer vi att direktsända med Sergej Petrutkov som är tidigare biträdande justitieminister i Ukraina och höra hur läget är, vad som händer, de pågående fredsförhandlingarna, men även om den ryska propagandan som pågår. Warmly welcome, Sergej. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. So I'm currently a senior lecturer in international law at the university in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. I previously worked as Deputy Minister of Justice for 4 years. I'm following the events, of course, in my country, and I'm right now in Kiev, in the capital, the city that Russian troops are trying to encircle and probably attack. Thanks for your interest in the situation in Ukraine, and I would be happy to give my perspective and answer your questions.
How is it the ordinary day life? What do you do during a day?
Now, the situation is very different in different places. So, I mean, Ukraine is a big country. It's the biggest country in Europe by territory. So in Kiev, we've had days where there was some of the missiles shot, in the residential houses, and some people died because of that. But compared to other places in the country, it has been relatively quiet. All of the city is under control by the government. Right now, we have a curfew since yesterday, so I can go out of my apartment. We've been warned that for 2 days, in order to make sure that our armed forces can effectively counter any potential attacks, no one should leave the house. So this happened about a week ago. It's the same right now. So I'm sitting at home. I'm watching the news all the time and following what's happening. And I'm talking to my friends and family, to people around. We're trying to support each other. It's a very, very difficult situation for everyone here.
Do you have contact with your former students at the university? What are they saying?
Yeah, so we throughout the country, of course, the university stopped lectures. It's dangerous in some parts of the country. Several universities have been destroyed by Russian bombings, and you can't continue studying there. Some of the universities are now at the parts of the country that are occupied by Russians. So in my university, as in others, many students left for their hometowns. They're safe there. Some of them became refugees in Europe. Others are helping. Some people actually joined the territorial defense. These are the armed forces that support the regular army in defending their cities and municipalities. Many others are helping, army helping to provide food to people in need. Some of them who are in the Western Ukraine are helping the influx of people who are moving within the country to find housing there, to find things that are necessary to people in need. So I am in touch with many of them, and I think that they are pretty much following what other people doing in defending the country in various positions, various places.
Yes. From the beginning, you're from the eastern Ukraine, from Donetsk. And there had been the Russian aggression there since several years. What happened over there? 2014 with Crimea and so on.
Yes, so I'm from Donetsk. It's the city in the east of Ukraine, close to the border with Russia. It has been occupied since 2014. It's a part of the country that Russia recently recognized as an independent state. It's not recognized by anyone. The situation there has been deteriorating, getting worse throughout the last 8 years. You don't have, international presence there. There's no jobs. People who oppose the Russian occupation would be terrorized and, put to jail or tortured. So you have this no man's land where, people get some money from the Russian government, but no future, no prospects. And we've seen people leaving this area, every year massively. So I think that right now they have about only 1/3 of the regional population. And I guess, I mean, that's what Russia is, spreading now in other parts of the country.
And what is happening right now? Why did Russia do this invasion of Ukraine?
Right. So, I mean, this started in 2014, and even before, Putin, as early as in 2007, made a famous speech in Munich where he stated that he thinks that collapse of the Soviet Union was the biggest catastrophe of the 20th century, and effectively he's trying to recreate the Soviet Union and its sphere of influence in Europe and elsewhere. So he launched an attack against Georgia. He launched an attack against Ukraine. He pretty much subdued Belarus last year. Russians got involved in Kazakhstan also last year. So he's been using his armed force outside of Russia to recreate the Soviet Union and its sphere of influence. And we've seen this happening. I think that many people outside of Ukraine, Russia, and neighboring countries did not take this seriously enough. And only this year, when the Putin launched the full-scale aggression against Ukraine and started committing war crimes every day, then many people in Europe and elsewhere realized that Putin is a danger to all of the continent.
Well, everyone is talking about that. First, the Russians tried to do a coup inside Kyiv, kill the government, kill the president, and put in their own guys.
Mm-hmm.
But that failed. Also, why do you think that that attempt failed?
It seems that Putin was misinformed by his close circle, and himself, sort of was in a delirium himself, believing that Ukrainians will not resist, that he will have, firstly, he will overcome the Ukrainian armed forces in a matter of hours or a couple of days. And secondly, that Ukrainians...
No, I think your sound is a bit...
Oh, really? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, up and down.
I'm not doing anything, so I don't know what's happening. Hopefully my internet connection is good enough. Let me know if something goes wrong. So I think he miscalculated several things. Firstly, he thought that Ukrainian army is too weak and will not resist for more than a couple of days. Secondly, he thought that Ukrainians will not oppose, and some of them will even welcome the Russian army. That's what he's been telling all the time. And thirdly, he thought that Europe Europe and NATO countries would not respond in unison with something that is serious enough. So he expected the countries to be divided, and even if they would, introduce some sanctions, that would be something easy, something that he would be able to live with. So he miscalculated in all three of those things, and therefore now he is trying to come up with something else. He had no plan B. I mean, we have many evidence of that. So I think he's stuck in Ukraine, and he's just trying to find a justification for himself and for his domestic audience and internationally to sell this as his victory.
But now we can also see there is a lot of war crimes in all over Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a bit about what is happening in Mariupol, in Kharkiv, and so on?
Right. So because this first idea of a blitzkrieg, a quick war, failed, and because the armed forces of Ukraine were able to resist the Russian armed forces, he had to resort to war crimes, which is basically terrorizing the ordinary people. So he started shelling Ukrainian cities with the missiles, hitting the houses, schools, theaters, residential buildings to terrorize the population. We've seen, people trying to leave the encircled cities, clearly being civilians, wearing the white flag in the direction which was declared as safe by Russians, and they would still be shot. We've seen people being shot on the street for no reason. Just now, in the Mariupol, it's a city on the, again, close to Russian border and the occupied part of our territory that is encircled by Russian armed forces for more than a week now. Almost 2 weeks now, where people have been surviving without water, electricity, mobile connection, or any services. They are trying to take this city. To them, it has the importance for some reason. And they've been shelling the city repeatedly. Just earlier today, they dropped a huge bomb on a theater in Mariupol, where lots of people were hiding from their attacks. And it's hard to tell how many people died there, but the overall number in Mariupol is already more than 2,000 civilians. So these are just people who happen to be in the city that Russians want to take for no reason, and they're dying. They're just losing their lives. And I think it's even more than that, because many people have no access to food or water, to medicine, to doctors, to any services. So Putin, because he could not win the war in a normal way, the way he expected, resorted to war crimes, terrorizing the people, targeting civilians, in order to force Ukrainians into peace agreement. I mean, Ukrainians, we are, as regular, European people, we value the life of everyone, right? Putin does not have this problem. So he lost something around 14,000 of Russian soldiers that are dead within 2 weeks, 3 weeks of this operation. But he doesn't care. They're hiding the numbers. They're not giving away the bodies. They're not even taking most of the bodies from the battlefield, or they're storing them somewhere without telling their relatives or family on their fate. So he does not care about human life, either Ukrainian lives or the lives of his own soldier. And that is the problem, right? Because he's trying to raise the stakes. He wants to have more Ukrainian casualties, and in this way force Ukrainians into a peace on his terms. And he doesn't care about the lives of his own soldiers. This is not a factor for him.
There is some attempts right now to having peace talks. What do you think about them?
Now, we're of course having the peace talks, and that is necessary. And I think at some point we will have to reach an agreement. Right now, I think from what is reported, so two sides are moving closer to each other, but it's still too far away. So basically what Russia wants Ukraine as a country without army, country that is neutral on paper, in reality controlled by Russia. They want, and of course, they want Ukraine to recognize the annexation of Crimea and of Donbass that were recognized as two independent republics. So something about loss of 20% of our territory. Russia, interestingly enough, has been using a propaganda all the way to justify her claims, and it follows exactly the Orwell, novel 1984, where they are simply denying the truth and telling, on white they're saying it's black, and in black they're saying it's white. So they've accused Ukraine of planning an attack against Russia and said that we've attacked them because they would otherwise attack ours like next week. They then said that, well, Ukraine has been trying to develop a biological or chemical weapon, and that's why we attacked Ukraine, which is not true. They also said, well, Ukraine was developing a nuclear weapon and they were going to use it against Russia, which is also not true. They've been, for example, in this recent bombing of the hospital, they say, well, this is a Ukrainian provocation. Ukrainians themselves bombed the theater, I'm sorry, in Mariupol. They say whenever a civilian object is targeted, they say this is a Ukrainian provocation. This is the Ukrainians which done that. And they don't report anything domestically. And in Russia, you don't have alternative views. You only have the state-owned or controlled media, and you only get one point of view. So Russians don't know about the casualties in Ukraine. They don't know of war crimes committed. They only hear the official story that Ukraine was planning to attack Russians. Ukraine is killing the civilians and doing provocations, and Russians are only targeting the military targets and are about to end this operation. They don't even call it a war. If you call this a war in Russia, you can be sent to jail for up to 15 years. It's something that Orwell wrote in his novel. You can use the words, the truthful words. If you do that, you're sent to jail. So you have to follow the official information, the official lie, and whatever is told on the TV is the only truth that is possible.
What are your neighbors saying about this Russian aggression and invasion?
You mean my neighbors in my house or my neighbors in? Well, in my apartment complex, I think most of the people left to other places that are more safe. So we have only, I would guess, about 20% or even less of the people. We have been, but those people made a decision to stay here to look after the apartment complex. And we do have people who are staying awake at night and doing the shifts around the building to make sure that there's no one suspicious coming, that the building is not hit, there's no fire or any other things, because as I said, most of the people left. So people here who chose to stay are just as ready to defend their house, their city and their country as everybody else. I think that people, of course, are nervous, but no one is panicking, no one is afraid. We know that we are doing the right thing, that we're defending our future, and therefore we're ready to continue with that until we get what we want. So we're constantly chatting with our neighbors on things that are happening around the house, what's the news, what's happening, where to buy medicines, whether the supermarket is open, what they have there. So we have a lot of this solidarity and support and spreading of information and communication between ourselves.
Yesterday you had a visit from some European leaders. Was that important, and why?
Yeah, so yesterday we had 3 prime ministers of Czechia, Poland, and Slovenia traveling all the way to Kiev to meet our president and bring the message of the unity, solidarity, and also the European future of Ukraine. And this has been huge. This has been symbolic. I mean, we are in the state of war. We are being attacked by Russia. Russian army is about 15-20 kilometers from the city center. They were at the outskirts of the city. They've been now pushed back. So all the embassies were left the country even before the war started. They left Kiev before the war started. So nobody's here. And Russians actually were planning an attack and maybe bombing of Kiev, the capital, yesterday. So that was hugely important. Not only was it a sign of a solidarity, but it was a sign that we're not afraid. We are with you there. We're going to share whatever happens to you, we're going to share that, right? If there's going to be a bombing, if there's going to be attack, we're going to share the pain of that with you. And I think this is very symbolic, because normally, you would see people running, out of the country as soon as possible, and you don't have any high level representatives of other countries. So I think that was huge, and I would expect other politicians, other people who really care about Ukrainian peace in Europe, come in here to show the solidarity, even by sometimes risking their own safety.
What do you think about the actions that the European Union has done since the war broke out?
Right. European countries have been quite sympathetic and showed a lot of solidarity with Ukraine, something that we have not seen towards us ever, but also the unity in Europe that we have not seen for decades. I think all the countries understood this as a threat to their own security, and something that has not happened since the Second World War. And we've seen a lot of sympathy from the ordinary people. So about 2 million Ukrainians are now in Europe, refugees. They left the country. These are mostly women and children, because the men under 60 years old cannot leave the country. We are under conscription. We should be ready and prepared to defend our country. So it's mostly women, elderly, and children who left for Europe. And we've seen people all over the European continent opening their hearts, their homes to Ukrainians, showing them that they share their pain, that they are welcome wherever they are, that Europeans are ready to show the support to Ukraine. So this has been very, very important to us. On the government level, I think the governments took longer to show solidarity with Ukrainians, unlike the ordinary European people. But we also seen a solidarity between them. All of the European countries provided the financial support and military equipment that is necessary for us to fight the Russian army, that is at least 8 times bigger and much more, much better equipped than the Ukrainian army. We've seen European countries, including Sweden, putting important and kind of very, very serious sanctions on Russia that are influencing the ability of Putin to wage this war. And the idea is, of course, that he is using all of the things that he has in his economy and Western technology to wage this war. So this should be stopped. And what is important, of course, to recognize that these sanctions also backfire on European countries. This is costly, and we've seen European countries, taking this as a showing of solidarity towards Ukrainians. I know that Sweden recently introduced some package to alleviate the raise of prices on many things. So again, I think this is important, because this is Europeans sharing the pain of Ukrainians to the extent possible, and being united in condemning the aggression and imposing sanctions on Putin and his cronies, people around him.
This is also a war about values. If you compare the Russian Putin values compare with the Ukrainian one, what is the difference?
The Putin
especially how you are treating minorities, for example.
Right. So he actually, the actual pretext for starting the war in 2014 was Ukraine signing an association agreement with the EU, where we pledged that we want to share our values. We have the same standards of democracy and human rights. And that's the path that Ukraine has been taking for the 30 years of our independence, whereas Russia was going in other direction. So Putin has been accusing Ukraine of taking too much of European values and trying to spread them in Russia. And part of the reason why he's attacking Ukraine is because he's afraid that if Ukraine becomes successful, that would also give hope to the Russians and show them the alternative, that you can live prosperously while having democracy, free election, freedom of speech, and human rights. Whereas he's now trying to build something different, an autocratic state following just one point of view, one religion, one official ideology. So Ukraine has been again moving in the other direction for 30 years. We've recognized the rights of minorities. We have been moving towards more tolerance and respect within our society. We are recognizing and ratifying all the European documents that that recognize these rights. And I think again, people really like the life here in Ukraine. I mean, it is becoming better and better, both in terms of economically, but also in terms of how you feel, how you're treated, how you interact with the state. So that was the danger that the Putin saw. Again, there's many reasons why he started this war, but human rights is a part of it. Whereas in Russia, the official ideology is that there's only one church that has recognized the Orthodox Church. It is very conservative. It's against the LGBTQ rights. It's against the freedom of speech. He pretty much subduing the ethnic minorities in Russia. That's why there's only Russian language and culture overall, and lots of Russia has more than 200 peoples living in the territory. Most of them already lost their national identity, their culture, their language. So he's been oppressing them. And this is Russian policies for centuries, actually. And that's actually what he's saying about Ukraine. He says Ukrainians are not a separate country. They're not a separate nation. There's no a separate Ukrainian language as such. So I think, again, we were moving away from that. And that's part of the reason why we are attacked now.
And if the European Union now is supporting Ukraine a lot, how do you look at the Chinese? How are they acting right now?
Right. So the Chinese supported Russia on all the, in the United Nations, in their political statements. They, of course, are seeing what's going to happen with Ukraine, whether Russia is able to do this aggression and get away with that, because they're looking at Taiwan and possible future military actions against Taiwan. The big question right now is whether China is going to support Russia by giving them money, technology, and military equipment, because Russia has been running out of all of that. They are losing a lot of their tanks and airplanes in Ukraine. They've been cut off from Western financing, and because of sanctions they cannot find any money anywhere. And because they've been over-reliant on Western technology, which is unavailable to them for right now because of the sanctions, they don't have their own airplanes. They don't have the equipment that is necessary to run mobile connection, power station, trains. They don't have mobile phones. They have nothing really. I mean, this is the country that is just living by selling oil and gas and getting everything in return, but also having a lot of weapons. So now what is critical, I guess, is whether China not only going to support politically Russia, but also going to support it economically, technologically, and in the military sense. So that's a big question. And I think it's our, we have to work on making sure that this does not happen. Again, because whatever happens right now in Ukraine will have a huge impact, not only on all of Europe, but on the whole world. Because if the country can launch an aggression against another state without any response from the international community, that would send a signal to China that you can do this as well, with respect to Taiwan, for example, and in many other places as well.
When there is demonstrations in Stockholm, and there are quite many and quite often, and gathering a lot of people in solidarity with Ukraine, there is a slogan that is shouting "Slava Ukraini." What does that mean?
That means glory to Ukraine, and we respond by saying the glory to heroes. That comes from the recognition of the the bravery of Ukrainian people who are standing up against any aggressor. In our national anthem, we have the words that we will give our souls and bodies to defend our country, and I think this is what has been happening right now. These are not just words, because it's not only the army that is fighting the Russians, it's the whole country. Because you see people taking up arms and joining the army right when the conflict started. Even if before that they never had any military experience, they were, IT person, university professor, or a worker on a plant. We've seen lots of other people helping the army or stopping the Russian aggression. We've seen people, unarmed people, going out to stop the Russian tanks from advancing. In the cities that are now occupied by Russia, every day thousands of people go out on the main square to protest and say that they are Ukrainians. The Russians are not welcome. That they should leave immediately. We have Ukrainian mayors of town that are abducted by Russians, taken away somewhere in order to try to control the city administration. We've seen the activist people who are, active in their communities being targeted by Russians, but nevertheless, people just don't stop, and people keep opposing. It's amazing how the whole country is united in defending our homeland and our values and our future against the Russians who are trying to take this away.
Okay, and then we end like we always do. Slava Ukraini. And thank you, Sergey.
Heroям slava. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.